What's up, guys? I just wanted to make a video kind of discussing some of what Phil Spencer said on the Kind of Funny podcast. Not as much the Redfall stuff, although I may do a different video on that. That's just going to require me to play Redfall. But I did sort of want to talk about his comments towards the end of the podcast, or at least the end of his part of the interview of the podcast, where he was talking about Microsoft's place in the console space and sort of Microsoft's strategy when it comes to consoles going forward. And I'll put some of those comments down here just so you can kind of know what I'm addressing. First off, before we get any further, I'm sure there's going to be some people who want to label me as a pony or whatever. First off, don't be that guy. Don't be free PR warrior on social media for any of these companies. They provide you a product, you provide them money. That is the beginning and end of your obligation to them. You are not getting any discounts based off your Twitter posts. That said, I do feel like I need to qualify where I stand as a gamer right now. I have a PS5, I have a Nintendo Switch, and I have a PC that, while it is not top of the line, it is capable of playing all current gen software. I have had Game Pass in the past. I do not maintain an active Game Pass subscription currently just because I'm not playing any software on Game Pass currently, and I feel it's wasteful to maintain a subscription that I'm not using. Although I do think Game Pass is a fantastic value. I think it provides a huge value to a lot of gamers. But one of the things that anybody who's gamed on PC for any length of time knows is that all of the different platforms on PC love to give away free software. I think you get like 2 to 3 free games a week, at least from Epic, and occasionally Steam and GOG and Amazon Prime Gaming will all give away free games as well. And not all of those games are games you're necessarily going to play, but if you play for any length of time, there occasionally is going to be a game you want to play, and you end up with a backlog that could choke an elephant. That said, as you can see, sort of my boys' toys behind me, I have 2 sons who are under the age of 5. So I do believe I'm going to be having more hardware entering my home within the next 5 years, whether new consoles are released or not. I would love for my boys to grow up in a world where there is a big 3 providing first-party experiences that are parity with each other on quality. I would love for my boys to grow up in a world where Xbox is giving them experiences that they will have nostalgia for and that they will carry with them throughout their lives. I don't really necessarily feel like I've gotten those experiences from them in recent history, but I am definitely open to them providing those experiences. I hope that they can give us great games, and I feel like they still will. So like my statements here are in no way regarding where I think they are as far as the content that they have coming out in the future. That said, it was interesting when Phil sort of stated that they're not going to out-console Sony and out-console Nintendo, and that if Starfield comes out and it's 11 out of 10, it's not going to shift their place in the console space. And that's okay because that's not really their strategy going forward. Their strategy going forward is to put Xbox games on as many devices as possible. Their strategy going forward is Game Pass sales, so we're going to have to evaluate sort of we don't have great information on Game Pass that they've provided, but we will talk about some of the numbers that they have provided. But I just feel like the idea that their path forward is not necessarily on a console might be a touch overstated. So let's just sort of discuss the numbers that they've given us. So coming up on a year and a half ago, they told us that there are 25 million active Xbox subscribers. They've never given us a breakdown of PC versus console, so we have to make some assumptions, albeit reasonable assumptions. We do have to make some assumptions in that area. The estimates that I could find on Xbox Series sales put them at about 18.5 million, although that was a little bit old, so they may be like pushing 20 at this point. If we look at just the interview, Phil himself said a couple of things. He said that their console players are their most financially dedicated players. You can get Xbox on Game Pass or on Xbox consoles and on PC, but you can also get it on cloud. And one of the other things that he said in that interview, based off of the CMA's blocking of the ABK deal, is that he thought the CMA was making assessments based off of a market that doesn't currently exist. Now, I know there will be people who say, well, I've seen reports that there's been so many people who have experienced cloud gaming. I'm not saying cloud gaming isn't a thing, but even by Phil's own admission, the exclusive cloud gamer isn't really a thing right now. So I won't include them when I look at where you can access Game Pass, because even by their own admission, that's not a significant portion of their Game Pass subscribers currently. I think based off of the information that we have, it is very safe to assume that by far their highest attachment rate of Game Pass subscribers to hardware owned is going to be on Xbox consoles, not just the series, but I'm sure there's still a few stragglers who have Game Pass on Xbox One. I don't think it's unreasonable to make that assessment. The question is we got that 25 million about a year and a half ago. Sony came out recently and said they thought it was more like 29 million when they were talking about their own subscription service. But the firm that they based those numbers off of said that was more of a forecast. They don't have any information that would lead them to believe that they're at 29 million. And I would say that I still believe they're probably somewhere between 25 and 30 million Game Pass subscriptions. The reason being is if they had crossed that 30 million threshold, it would be fiscally irresponsible of them not to make that information public, both to the company and to their shareholders, as it would increase the value of their shares and thus increase the value of the company. So had they crossed that 30 million threshold, I believe they would have told us by now. That said, what I think is part of the problem right now for Xbox going forward is they've probably reached a little bit of a saturation point as far as, Game Pass subscriptions go, with how many consoles are out there and, how many PCs are out there that are capable of running current gen games. Because you might be able to run these games at 720 on a 1080, but you could get a better experience out of a Series S. So really, when you're talking about PC gaming, you're really only talking about maybe 2000 series and up equivalents that could run, all the games on Game Pass that could really utilize the service. So it's really not all PCs out there. It's a fraction of those PCs. I get that you want your market to not necessarily be tied to actual console sales, but that's not the reality that you currently live in. The reality that you currently live in, I would guess the majority, and probably the significant majority, are still going to be consoles that have Game Pass subscriptions. So if that's your plan going forward, I'm sure there is some forecasting of their growth in the PC game space, and I'm sure there will be some growth in the PC game space. But will that really be at a rate that'll be satisfactory to their shareholders? Because anybody who knows corporate America, it's not about are you profitable, it's are you growing and what rate are you growing at. And while that may be their plan going forward, whether that plan can maintain the growth rate necessary for that to, for them to stay on that straight and narrow plan is really what I question. Anyways, that's just my thoughts on the matter, my 2 cents. If you think it's wrong, if you think it's right, let me know. I'd be happy to address it down in the comments. And until next time, guys, get awesome.